So, again, good morning to everyone. I'm Satish here from Pragnan AI. So, in last uh, 2 weeks, we covered basics of C. We covered operators in C. We covered conditional statement and loop statements. So today we will be doing programs on those conditional. We have done some programs on conditional statements, and we have to do a lot more programs in conditional statement and loop statements. So what we will do also, like we will also cover one more called functions, and then we will do a lot more programs because these 3-4 things are very key. It's like most of the programs you can write using these basic things like conditional statement, loop statements, and these functions. These three things are more than sufficient to write any programs. Apart from that, there are some more models will be there. We will be covering maybe in next subsequent classes. So the order is as I mentioned in the document which I've shared. So next I will be covering arrays, strings, and pointers and structures all in one session on that. So and then file handling, enumeration, processing, and dynamic memory allocation all is one sessions. And after covering these things, most of the things I will be doing is actually programming. So what today also we will do a lot of some programs, but when I complete entire thing, then after that, like we will be having multiple sessions only on the programming things we will be doing. So that's it from in the course structure side. So okay. So let us start with functions. This is also very essential topic in C programming. What exactly means by functions? So C program itself is called a structured programming language. Any doubts here? Anybody facing difficulties in hearing my voice? Is it clear for everyone? Is my voice audio is clear? Guys, or everyone facing some issue with the voice? Is my voice is breaking or like loud and clear? What about others? So Amruta saying that like my voice is not clear. What about others? Is my voice is audible? Hello, you guys are there? Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, my voice is audible, clear, or there are some breakups?
No, sir. Clear, hai, sir.
Okay, fine. So, fine. I think Amruta, you can disconnect or join or something that like maybe some issue there in your network. So, fine. So let us start with functions. So function is the core of C programming because the C program is called structured programming and procedure programming language. What is meant by structured programming language or procedure programming language means like everything is based on functions or procedure. See, there is something called procedure. Also, that is other name called is for function. So procedure or function. So the C program is called functional programming the procedure programming language. So which has multiple functions. So function is heart of the C programming language. Like what exactly function means. So we see. Let us go back to the history. So we know in mathematics, like so we have studied mathematics. In mathematics there is something called a functions. So we study something like f of x is a function. So is equal to something that like x square plus 1 or 2. That is what is a function in mathematics. This is in mathematics. So now how we will evaluate a function. So we need to pass certain parameter to function and functions take some value and it will execute and compute. Like for example, if I give x is equal to 2, so what is the output of this function? So it will compute using, this is called input to the function. So this is input to the function and it will take this value and it will compute. So it will substitute there. So means like it will become 4 plus 2 and this is equal to 6. So this is what is written. So it's like in mathematics also, the function takes some input and it will give an output. So something similar to that we have in a C programming language. There is a function. So it's like function by definition, it a specific code and it performs specific tasks. Like what? So it does. See, this function is defined and it does a specific task. So what is the task actually? The task is computing this equation or doing something. So any function, it performs a specific task. So why we need to create a function is intention is actually like instead of writing code repetitively. So for example, if I'm not writing a function, so I have to repeat that code again and again. For example, I'm trying to find a function to find a number is prime or not. So is number is prime or not is a function. Is number is prime or not. What I will be doing actually. So every time when I get a number, I need to check a number is prime or not. So instead of writing the code to checking the number is prime, assume that like this is a small piece of code to write a check the number is prime or not, as prime or not. So if for example, I'm using here, so if I'm writing a code and again I'm inputting some value and again I need to check whether the number is prime or not, then I have to write this code entirely here. Then after sometimes like again I need to check the number is prime or not. Again, I have to write the entire code here. So means like instead of writing that code repetitively, unnecessary you are if writing the code repetitively is what happens actually your code size will increase actually, and it is not that easy to read again and again actually. Instead of that, if you write a small activity which is done repetitively as a function, then calling that function again and again in terms of readability, in terms of code's file size will become very, very small and easy to understand. So the intention of that function is to reduce the code size and improve the readability of the code. Is that clear? Readability means like somebody who is reading your code are like able to read the code, understand the code, and he can debug the code. So that he should be feeling easy to understand it actually. Because why we should be writing a code such a way that like someone else can read it actually, because see in the IT world it is known thing that like anybody cannot work like till end of the life and he will be working on the same project. So you'll be working on some project and after some time you will be moving out of the company or moving into some other project, and that code or software has to be someone else has to maintain because this software keep on updating. So if you are writing something, so like some software and next somebody has to update it or modify it actually, like because software keep on updating. So that is the reason like whenever whatever you write, you should be more easy to read and more easy to understand the code. So that is also plays an important role. Not like that algorithm. One thing is like just writing the code is one thing, but documenting of that, making that code more readable to anybody and able to debug is actually that is very, very important. So you should always focus on that thing. And in terms of when you are trying to use a variable name, when you are trying to use a function name, when you are writing the code with a lot of comments, all those things are very, very essential. And even in the interviews, technical interviews, if they ask you to write a code, you should be writing some comments, you should be describing some functions, you should be using the functions. So wherever is necessary, all those things you need to demonstrate. And that in that way, function plays an important role there because you need to make code more readable. So the thing here is actually key thing is actually function is a block of the code performs specific task. This is the key statement. So we need to create a function to do divide the complex problems. This is and reuse the code. This is the second important point about the functions. Divide the complex problem into small functions and make our program easy to understand and reuse. So why we need to do that is actually because somebody can reuse or like somebody can modify it or somebody can update it or like fix the issues. This is two important characteristics you should be remembering. Any questions here? Anybody not understand these 2 points? Any doubts here? What is a function? And as I said, function will take certain inputs and it will perform specific task and it will give the result. Is that clear? So fine. So any okay. So the next thing what we will be looking into actually, there are two type of functions are there, like which is supported in C programming language. One is a standard library functions That is the reason we include lot more header files actually. So if these standard library functions are functions written by someone else already available to use. So it is something that like if I'm trying to construct a house, so I don't need to construct house from ground up. I will be using the bricks already somebody has manufactured it. So I'll be using doors which somebody has already prepared it. It's like so something that like so already someone else has written. I'm trying to pick up that and I'm trying to assemble it, or I'm trying to write the code around it actually. So that is what is we can do. So and to do that actually we should be including. So these library functions are predefined. So predefined means like somebody what is the means by definition of the program function means like somebody has written the code for that. It is already written. So and declaration inside the header file, and they are declaration and definition. If you know what is the difference, like so, let me explain that. Like okay, we'll go here. Actually, that is better. Assume that like this is a so let us. So assume that like this wide function name, it doesn't take any parameter, and this is a function. Assume that like this is a function. So this is called a definition of a function. So when we say full function is defined, so means like written code, that is called a definition of the function. Declaration means like, let me show the declaration. So something like this. So I'm just declaring, just like the way I'm declaring variable, I'm declaring the function. What I'm trying to say is actually this is a function and it takes some parameters like integer one, two arguments, argument one, argument two, and it will return value of int. So this, like I'm trying to describe briefly about what is the function name, what kind of argument it will take, what kind of return value it will give, and in a one line of statement. That is called declaration. So definition is actually writing that code. So writing this entire code of that function is called definition. So one is the definition, function definition, another is declaration. And all these pre-built libraries are predefined. Means like somebody is already written the code for that. And all this declaration means like the function declaration will be there in the header files. So either they're in the header files and the body is inside DLL. Sometimes like so you maybe we will discuss about what is a DLL and all those things if you don't know. So DLL is actually a dynamically linked library. So there are two kind of library you already know. Means like somebody has written the code and created those functions, and they have have a declaration in a header file. So but these code, whatever they have written, they have to compile it, and those compiled thing has to be there in certain kind of a file. So that file is called a DLL. So what is meant by DLL is like dynamically linked library. So there are two kind of library can be linked. So one is so let me explain what is meant by linking. Anybody knows what is a linking? Linking of the library. So there are one is a statically linked, another is a dynamically linked. So first, what is library is a set of functions somebody has written. So library is actually a set of functions somebody has written. So this is a block of functions. So I maybe have one function, maybe have multiple functions, and I will be creating in one file. So I may be having one function to do addition. I will be having one function to do square root. I will be having one functions to do square, cube, or something like. I may be having multiple kind of functions, and I have created one file. And a name for that library is actually I say maths functions. So I created that, and all these declaration I put into some header file. So this is a library. Now this library I will be using. How should I use actually? I will be using including the header file. So I'll say that like hash include header file, and I will be using the functions provided in that library. So now this library, if I'm trying to use, so now what is actually like a compiler? Like, so now let us go back to the basic things. So now I have written some code. This is my code, and I have used some function. Like assume that like I have used some function called printf. Printf is somebody has written. So another is a scanf, and somebody has written. And then I have used something that like maths library. So square root or something that like, so square root, sqrt. Now, these functions are somebody else written. And to use this, what I have done, I have included appropriate header files, and then I have used those functions. So now, when I'm trying to compile this file, so I'm trying to compile this file. So because why the program has to be compiled and have to be created a machine code, correct? So when I'm trying to compile this code, so during the compilation, it will link. So because it has to link to this function written by, it's like it has to take this code which is written, and it has to add here. So in the part of the file, it's like, so this is my code and this is additional code I am copying, or I'm adding from appropriate file. So this printf, wherever it is there, I will be adding the printf code here. Scanf code I will be adding here. So it's like my code is actually my code plus the code whichever the function I have used. So it's like it is a collective of that code. So so who does actually picking up that and building this whole file, code file, is that linker. That is called linker. So it is linking. So it is my function, my code plus the functions which I have called. So it is linking and creating a complete file. So that job is done by a software called linker. So linker objective is actually link all those libraries and create one code file. So that is what it will do. So much like what it will do is actually like it will say something that like this is my code and I'm using one function. So that function I will be is here, code of that function, code of that function, that code of that function. So all this, so this is my code function. This is library one code, library 2 thing I'm used, library 3 I have used. So all these things will be linked together and it will create one file. So one file, and this file will be compiled. So now if I'm trying to link it before link it and then compile it and then create a object file. So object file is actually executable files. Like, so if I create a file and compile machine code, and then I'm trying to run that code. So this linking is called statically linking, because I'm trying to link everything before I link it and create one file and I will execute it. So that is statically linked. Statically means like while compilation time only I'm linking all these files. That is called statically linked. Dynamically linked means like, so what it will do, these files are already compiled files. Like, so for example, this is my code. I'm using some function. So I will say that like this function is at certain location. I will just say this function has to be called from specific location. So now another function, and this is, so now what will be, I'm trying to compile this code with the hooks to certain specific library. So these hooks will be linked later on while running the program. So when you are executing the program, and it will find out and pull out that the functions, and it will execute that functions wherever you have called that function. So now these functions are linked while executing the program. So that kind of method is called dynamically linked. So dynamically linked means like these functions are already compiled and executable format. So it's like this library functions are already compiled and executable formats, and they are all there at certain locations. Like, so for example, this is at location 200 in memory, and another function is at location 300 in memory. So another function is at something. So now whenever you are trying to call this function, it will directly say that like this function is at there, and will start executing that. So this kind of linking is called dynamically linked libraries. So there are two kind of libraries are there. One is statically linked libraries, another is dynamically linked libraries. And all these standard library functions are dynamically linked libraries. And those codes are there in the .dll files. Any questions here? Anybody not understood what is meant by statistically linked or what is a dynamically linked? Any doubts? Any doubt? Let me show some diagram. It will be much more easier for you. Okay. So any questions? Let me copy this here and I'll paste here. Just to make sure you understand statically linked and dynamically linked. So everybody understood? This is very, very important concept. What is meant by statically linked and dynamically linked concepts? So I hope you understood it actually. Let me give you one more example here. So forget about these wordings. Like usually, like you will depending on operating system. So what kind of library is called? If it is a Linux operating system, these shared libraries are called as .so, dynamically linked libraries. If it is a Microsoft Windows operating system, they are called .dll. So .so and .dll are same. So if you are using in Windows kind of scenario, so all these libraries are created as a .dll. So you should are defined in .dll functions. If you are using Linux thing, so it is .so. So both are same, the thing. So but concept is it is there everywhere, irrespective of operating system. So sometimes will be linked during execution. So during execution time, if I'm trying to call that function, linking that function that is called dynamic link library. So any doubts here on the statically and something? And most of these standard libraries are body inside the DLLs. Like so, either it will be inside the DLL if you're using in the Windows, or if you're using Linux system, then it should be part of .so. Is that clear? Any doubts about the standard libraries? What is standard libraries? And some brief about standard libraries. Any doubts here? So one example is printf that we already know. So the printf is one example. So we already use to use the printf. What we use std.io. I'm trying to include that. Is that clear? So any library you should be if you wanted to use that library, you should include the appropriate header files, because in header files they have a declaration of the functions. So why we need a declaration of function? Because see, whenever you are trying to refer, like so something like that, it is something like that, this and that. What is this? So if you have defined it is something like a pronoun. So whenever you're using a pronoun, you need to know that like whom you are referring. So Ram is a good guy, and he is means like he refers to Ram. So declaration is something that like, so it is trying to say that like, okay, what is that function and all those things. So we need to have the declaration there. Then only I can say that like what is the function, because so all these header files have a declaration. So I should have a header files. So any functions if you are trying to use, you should have a header files to be included. So without header files, it will say that like I don't understand what is that actually. So is so that is very, very clear. So let us look into some examples of standard libraries. So any questions here? Any questions on the standard libraries? So let us see some examples of the standard libraries. One is printf, another is a square root, and there are so many string libraries are there. We'll discuss everything like so. Lot of like so each kind of activities. There are a set of standard libraries are there. Let me go back. The list is there. So assert.h is actually assertion functions. So C type is actually character type functions. So locally.h actually localization functions. Maths.h actually math functions. So many these are the library header files, like standard libraries utility functions. So string functions are string.h. So this is a list of the things. Like so, if you wanted to know more about these what all the functions are there, so you can Google it actually, but because most of the times we will be using standard std.ih, std standard library and string h. Apart from that, like whatever like maths and something else also. So where should we get actually? There is a lot of books are there, you can refer actually, or let me show you how. See, this is, you can Google it out where you can get it actually, the what kind of functions are there. So you should have little bit like a knowledge about these functions, like so, and you should be using those appropriate functions. Like you can refer like depending on how you whenever you wanted to use specific things. Like so, you should have a basic overview picture about what are the standard libraries available and what are the standard functions are available. So you should have a glance. You should glance about what all the math functions are supported. So if you wanted to see that, like what are the math functions are supported, so you can Google it and you can look at what kind of math functions are there. So list of the functions. 1 minute. This is a good place where you can look into. So math declaration functions. So what all the functions are there in the supported by C programming language? Like so, cos functions, logarithmic functions, square root, this logarithmic functions. So many functions are there. Like you should be knowing that like all the functions are already there, and you should try to use these functions and write while writing the code. So you can have a glance. Like so, most of the things like square root, pi values, all those things. Like so, you should be having this all these header file. You should have at least once a glance. So what kind of functions are there? What kind of things are supported? So all those things you can try out. So any doubts here? The standard function of libraries. Any doubts? Okay. The next one is actually user defined. So next one is actually user defined. So what exactly means by user defined functions? So user defined functions actually functions are written by us. So if someone else is not writing any functions to us, we are writing functions. So why should we write functions? To make code more easy to understand and easy to read, and also which instead of repetitively writing, I am trying to write a function. And any problem statement, you have to divide into some chunks of the code. How should I write the functions actually? What is the procedure? So first function is actually main function that we already know. What is the main function? So main functions, we have to write that. Then after that, like so, in main function does something, and I need to write multiple functions. And multiple functions, so the structure is same. The way it is a main function is there. So I should be writing the name of the function and what kind of argument it will take and what is the return value. And the function will start with the bracket and ends with the bracket. And within the those brackets, I should be writing multiple lines. Like so, what all that function does actually. So this is what is called definition of the functions. So definition of the functions, and whenever you are trying to call that functions, like so, there are two things are there. One is a declaration of the function. One is a definition of the function. Another so these are the two important things. So this is called definition of the functions, and declaration of functions we already discussed. So I'm trying to declare the function name. So function name has to be there, the return type has to be there, and in the bracket argument has to be there. So this is called declaration of the function, and this is called a definition of the function. This is called a definition of the function. And one more thing is actually I should be calling that function. So everything, so first function which will be executed in C program is main function. So execution starts from the main function. So the program start executing from the main function, and from main function, whatever the function you are trying to call, so that function has to be called here. While calling the function, how should I call? The name of the function, the main of the function, and you should be passing the value to that function. So passing the value to that function. There are two types of passing the value. One is pass by value, one is pass by reference. That we'll discuss it bit later on. So this kind of functions, like so I'm trying to define my own function, and that kind of functions are called user defined functions. So we will be writing our own functions. So if I have to use a standard library, so that time I'm not doing the what is called definition of the function. So I'm just using it. So to use that function or call that function, I'm just including the header file. So means like the declaration is in there in header file, and function is there in .dll or .so, defined in .so or .dll. Declaration is in header file. So I'm including the header file. But when I'm defining user defined function, my own function, I should have a declaration, then I should have a definition in the file. And then any of the calling the function is same, whether it is a user defined or whether it is a standard library. So any doubts here? So function name, and you should be passing the parameter like printf, and you will be passing the parameter to printf function. So something similar to that. Any questions here? So the difference here is actually declaration and definition is there in that file only. So in the standard thing, so definition and declaration is in header file, definition in the .dll or SO. And in the standard file, there are two ways of linking: dynamic, statically linked and dynamic linking. So it is most of the time it is dynamically linked. So when I define a program, so then it is statically linked because the code is there and file system is like the functions are linked statically. So any questions here? So this is the difference between the what is called standard libraries and user defined programs. Any questions? Understood the difference between two? What is the standard library functions, user defined functions? But key things is actually declaration has to be there, definition has to be there. But where exactly declaration has to be there? Where has to be the function is there defined? So depending on whether it is user defined or standard library. So user defined is you are writing your own functions. So instead of relying on someone else to write your functions. So any questions there? The syntax of this writing is actually that we already discussed. So let us discuss again. So if you wanted to know, so any function, like assume that like get array of square. So the name should be very, very proper because that function name should very, very important because what that function does. So you should based on that, you can decide what is the name of the function. So get array of square. So sorry, get area of a square. So it's like what is this function does actually? It calculates the area of a square. So square or a rectangle or something that like no. So then it will take one parameter, one argument. What is that actually? Int side. So it's like if somebody supply the side of a square, so it will calculate the area of the square. And what it will return? So it will return the integer type. So now in the function, so this is the return type, this is a function name, and this is a parameter, and there is a bracket. So there is a bracket, and then I'm writing the code inside that. So now this code also same. So the way we use the local variable or local definition is like whatever the function variable names if you are interested to use while doing the operations, you will be declaring those variables. Like so, I wanted to use a variable called area to store the area of the square. So and this is of type int. So now area is equal to side into side. So this is the expression I'm writing. So this is a statement. You can have one statement, you can have multiple statement, you can have loops, you can have conditional statement, you can have, and you can have another function call. So anything is possible. So in function within function call also possible. So or you can have multiple lines of code. It is not that like only one lines. And finally, it should return. So whatever the return type is there. So if it is integer, then it should be returning integer. So since it returns integer, so I'm returning area. Area is of type integer. So this is a value will be returned. So it's like function will have a return statement. So if it doesn't return anything, then it should be void. So void function name means like it doesn't return anything. So either it function returns something or function doesn't return something. So if it returns, then you should be having a return statement. And it can have multiple statements. It can have conditional statement. It can have for loops and while loops. All those kind of things are. Or also another function call, function and function. Because so this also is another function. So any questions here on the function definition? And how exactly call happens? So for example, when your first function what is executed is the main function, and you will execute some statements. And whenever there is a function call is there, so function call is name of the function and parameter. Since it doesn't take any parameter, I'm not supplying any parameter. So whenever you call, when you start executing this function, this statement will jump over and start executing where exactly this function is defined. So it will start executing this. And when you say return, so it will return and will start executing the next line from where this is called. So the next line statement starts executing. So execution flow is actually it will start from here and it will execute something. And then whenever function occurs, it will go and start executing from here. And then when returns comes, it will come back and it will start executing here. So this is how this is called function call. and programmable executions like the sequential flow. So it's just like the conditional statement, the flow of execution changes, correct? So it is not always sequential. Depending on the condition, it will go take the different route. So something when we do function call also, the flow of the execution also changes. Like so sequential, then jump here and start executing, and after returning, it will come back and it will start executing from the next line. So this is, and how it happens and all this happens, I'm not going in deeper into. So if you wanted to know that like how exactly it has to happen, then I need to take another session deeply explaining how the function jumps happens. Like there is what kind of routines are there and how the jump happens, how the local variable, because they also ask these kind of questions like how this function jump happens, how the values are passed and all those things, that I'm trying to take another session explaining in detail, but right now that is not necessary for you people. But when I'm explaining operating system and then when I'm explaining system programming, that time I'll explain that how exactly this function jump happens and how the values are passed and how it will come back, it will return the values, all those things I will explain there. So any questions here on the function definition, function calling and function execution flow, declaration and function, any questions here? Okay, there are two types of things are there you should be noticing actually. So now this is the my C file. So these are see, this is a main function, and I can define variables in the function. If I define the function variables here, these are local to this function, that is called main function. And if I define something outside this function, so int a, something b, and something, so these variables are accessible in this function. This is called global variables. So this global variables accessible. You can access a in C also, in this main function also. You can access in the product also. These are called global variables. So if you define inside this function, this is called local variables. That is another thing you should remember it. So the scope of the variables, what is called, that is actually scope of the variables. So if you define the variables outside the functions, so then those functions are accessible to all the functions available in that file. So this is a C, some file name. So these variables are available, visible to every functions in that function. So one is a main function, another is a user defined function. This is user defined function. Now another thing what you notice actually, this is a main function, and after that I'm using the product. Actually I'm using that function, user defined function here, but this is not defined above the main function. If it is defined below the main function, if it is defined below the main function, then I should have a declaration about the function before. Because see, whenever if I say that like I'm referring a here, a has to be defined. It has to be before it is used. Either it is declared here or it is above the things. Then only I can know that. Or else like compiler, while compiling, it doesn't understand what is that A or B or C or something. So something similar to that, if I'm trying to use a function name, and if this function name is not part of the standard header file, because there it is included, so in standard header file, or if it is not defined before this main function, then it doesn't understand what is that function. So I should have a declaration. So here I have a declaration, but like whenever it start interpreting or like converting this high level to something interpreter compiler, so now it knows actually the product is a function and it is already is a declaration. So why it needs to have declaration? Because I need to know what kind of parameter it takes and what kind of value it will return. Because if I don't know anything, so then suddenly if I assign C is equal to, if it doesn't return anything, then it should be a wrong statement. If the function doesn't return, I cannot assign to anything. If function returns integer and I'm trying to assign to float, then it will give an error. So I need to know more about the function, what it returns, what it takes. So that is where the declaration plays an important role. So this way, so if I'm not defined the function above the main function, then I should have a declaration. But if the case is actually this function is already defined above, so for example, in this case, there is not necessary to have declaration. Because if you see here, actually, there is no declaration for int sum actually. So I have not declared anything. I have just have a definition of that function. So that is possible because this function is defined above the main function. So now, because in compilation or interpretation or like converting the high level language to low language start from first line. First all lines include, so it knows all the declaration of the functions. Then the next. Because already it has known that actually this sum is a function, user defined function. And when you are trying to refer, it already knows about the function. No, it already knows that like it takes two parameter and it returns. So no need to have a declaration there. If you are defining user defined function above the function, a main function, then no need to have a declaration. But if you are defining in another file, if you are defining another file or you are defining below the main function, then the declaration or include files are necessary. So these two things you should remember. Any questions here? Anybody not understood? So when the declaration is necessary, when declaration is not necessary. And any questions here? And another one important point here is actually what is the local variable and what is the global variable. So if I am defining above these all these functions, those are the global variables. It can be available. So in this case, if I'm defining within the function, this area is known within the function. If you are trying to access this area outside this anywhere, it will say that like I don't know what is that area. Variable is not visible outside that function. So those are called local variables. This local means like they are visibility is within that function. Visibility within that function. And if you define that variable within the if statements, then the visibility of that function will be within that if statement. If you are defining a variable within the for loop, that visibility of that function will be that variable will be within the for loop. So those are called local things. Local means like I can only understand about that variable or name and everything within that wherever the whichever the block. So this is a block. So block statement will be starting from flower bracket and in the flower brackets. So visibility of that variable or will be there within that block. So they are local to that block, whether it is a function block, whether it is a if block, whether it is a for block, whether it is a while block. So the visibility will be visible to that local block. So if you define outside the things, so like this actually, the visibility will be visible to all the functions available there. So they are called global variables. Local variables, global variables. Any doubts here? There are 2 points are there. One, scope of the variables and the functions. So any questions here? Any questions on the standard library? Okay. So if we don't have any questions, what we will do, we'll do some sample programs and we'll try to see that like how it works. So now we understood the basic of the functions, basic things of user defined and standard defined. What we will do now, we'll try to write a simple programs and we'll try to understand it in a detailed way. So any questions? Let me know, or else like we'll start doing some simple programs. One demonstration using the standard library, one demonstration to use a user defined library. So or else like we can take a 5 minutes break and we can start. So either we can take 5 minutes break and we can start running the programs, or we can continue. So it's up to you. So you want to take a break? Guys, you are there? Are you listening?
Yes, sir.
So you want to take breaks or you want to continue?
Break, sir.
Okay, we'll take we'll start take 5 minutes break and we'll start at 10 o'clock. Okay, we'll use one we'll try to define one standard library function and then some user defined things. So most important some basic thing actually maths functions, like so what all the functions are there in maths library. So to use that functions defined in maths library, first I should be including the maths.h. So let us see that like how this exactly works. So now what I'm trying to do is actually I'm trying to create a square root of a number. So I'm trying to like, if somebody is asking that like write a program to find a square root of a number. So if the problem statement is write a program to find a square root of a number. So then what all the things is there necessary there? First is actually I should be finding out. So I should be knowing that whether I should write my own function or I should use the existing function. So square root, to calculate square root. So shall I write my own function or I should be using standard functions? So we already know that like it is already there in the maths.h, means like standard library function is there. So since it is already there, so then I should be using an HTTP. So where this function is declared, so I should know that like this is part of maths.h. So maths.h is a header file for this library. So you should be including. So the first, what is the statement starts actually? Include, this is common. So first, how should I start actually writing the code? So let me copy this here. So now first line, what I'll be doing actually, this is how I should be writing. This is forget about this here till now. So main function and the main function, and this is called skeleton of the function. So not even this actually. So we should have return 0. So this is a skeleton of the main function. So that we have done. Now what is next actually? Since I need to calculate a square root of a function, then I should be including appropriate include file. So what is that actually? Include math.h, because that is there here, because the declaration is done. So now to calculate a square root of a number, first what I should be doing, I should be reading the number, correct? So to read a number, I can read a number. So it can be integer, it can be float or anything. So now I'm defining, so assume that I can define integer number can be integer also, but square root of a number is float always. But number can be integer or it can be floating point number. So now let us say that like my function number also float and the return value also float. So now then how should I define declare? So float. So I'm trying to define float. What should be the variable name for the number? So I can use num or number or something. So this is my number I wanted to read, and then what should be the output of the square root of that? Where should I store that square root of a number? Then I should be saying that like a root. So root is another variable where I'll be storing it. So then how should I read the number? So first actually like directly you can say scanf, or you can say print enter a number, means like to just user, like you are informing user that like you enter a number, or else like this is not necessary, directly you can have scanf. So scanf a number. So I can just, I'm trying to read a number. So since it number is floating point, so the in quotes it should be percentage of, because it is a floating point number I'm trying to read. And how should I read? The name of the variable and ampersand in front of it, because this is how I'm trying to read. So means like now what I have done. So I have declared the variables and then I'm trying to read the number. Then what is the next thing? The next thing actually, so I need to calculate. I got the number. Now I need to calculate the square root of the number. So since I'm not defining, because this function is already there in the standard library, I'm calling that function. So how should I call the function? What is the name of the function? So function name is square root. So this is a function name, and it will take one argument. What is that actually? One argument, and I'm passing that argument, and it will return one argument. So since, so if you wanted to see that actually like where, how exactly it's declared, you can look into math.h. So math.h will say that like what is the declaration of that square root function. So let me go here. So here you'll come to know that like what the parameter it takes. So there is a square root. This is square root. So square root will take this is, say that like it will take a double and it will return a double, or there is one more square root is there, it will take float and it will return the float. So you know that like these are the functions are there. So you need to know, see these, you know that like what it will take and what it will return. So you should know that, and then based on that only you can, if it is taking two arguments, you should be supplying two argument. If it is taking one argument, you should be supplying one argument. And what type of argument it will take, only that kind of argument you can supply. So now floating point argument it takes. So it is possible. Then I'm trying to pass that. So then what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to call the function and passing the value, and it will return. This is called function calling. Standard library I'm trying to call here. So I'm trying to call the standard library functions. So, and this name should be same as what is there here. So you cannot say if it is square root, then it should square root. Is square root of, so square root L. So what all the functions are like. So the name should match and syntax should match. Number of arguments what you are passing should match. Type of argument should match, and return type sign or should match. Means like all these things has to match. If you are not matching, then it will give a compilation error. Is that clear? So when I'm trying to use, you should all match. So now what I will be doing? So now I have got it. Then I will be printing the square root of that number. So I'm trying to print the square root of that number. So whatever it may be. So because I have computed the square root and then I'm trying to print. So to print, actually, I'm using the printf. This is also another standard library. So square root of the number and percentage. But so what is this actually? Percentage f we already know. So percentage f we already know. So but what is that 0.2? So when I say 0.2, means like after decimal, I only want 2 digits. So after decimal, if you want 4 digits, I can have 4 digit. Here I'm saying that like after decimal point, only 2 digit is necessary. So that is either you can have this or you cannot have this actually. It is not necessary that like you should have that also. So if you wanted to say that like only 2 decimal point, I wanted to print the result, then I should have that dot. So now square root of the number, percentage f, this is a number, is equal to percentage f, this is a root. So this is what is the simple function to call the standard library. Any doubts here? Anybody not understood this code? Everybody understood this code? How I have written this code? Let us run that. So I should pass some number. So square root of the number 4 is 2. So now this, how many digits is printing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is 3 plus 3. So I wanted to restrict only decimal point 2. So I can have 2 decimal point. So now if you run it actually, the result will be up to 2 decimal point. Is that clear?
Yes.
So see the code, how should you start writing? This is how, one by one. Don't by heart actually. Most of the people what they so know like they by heart everything. No, you start incrementally writing. So one by one actually. And if there is an issue or something having any error, no, you compile it, like you recompile and you rebuild and something that like, so no issues, and play around with that actually. So that is not a problem. Okay, now we understood the basic. So you can do any number of like, so you can try out another thing. So what all the other function is there? Let me see here. So what is the other thing I can call? Some generic function I'm looking into. Log to the power of 10. So I wanted to calculate, log to of a number. So let me call this log 2. So given a number, you should be checking the logarithmic of 2. So calculating logarithmic value of that number, base 2. So how should I do? Simple. So instead of this one, so what it takes actually, log 2, what it takes double and double, no problem. So now the same code, I'm just saying that like instead of calculating a square of a number, I'm checking the logarithmic of a number. And this is also defined in the math.h. So I'm not changing math.det. And I'm reading a number. So now I'm instead of root, I'm saying that logarithmic. So let it be same. So you wanted to change the name. So log2 instead of using log2 number. So you should not use the same keyword. So I'm just using log2 of a number. So this is a variable I'm using. And I'm trying to print this. So this is standard library for calling a standard library, okay, for log2. So any question? So this is what you should be like. So you can call any function. This template is very simple. So if you understood the template, so just instead of square root and changing logarithmic in any other function, so you can run in this code. The logarithmic of 2 or 4 is log 2 is equal to something. So same, let me go with 16. Log to the base 2 is actually 4. So any questions here? So if you wanted to cross verify how the logarithmic of 2 calculated, then the calculator will be there. Calculator. Log calculator. Log to the base 2. Log to the base 2 is it? This is log. If there is log is there, there's log to the base e is there. Log to the base 2. See, log if I pass x is equal to 16, result is 4. So I'm getting, where was that actually? The result is same. So let us try with x is equal to 32. What is the result? Is 5. So can I try here? X is equal to 32. What is the result? This is cross verifying your result is right or not. Any questions? Any function you can try out. So what is other function I can try out here? Exponential. Exponential is another. These are common functions. I'm just using only common functions. So exponential of a number. Exponential of, okay, let me check. Instead of logarithmic, I'm just using exponential. So here x of a number. Exponential of a number. So this is a variable name. This is I'm using here. It's like, so rest all will be same. So I'm trying to calculate the exponential of number. So fine. So you should be changing that. Of a number. So fine. Any questions here? Any question? How should we use the standard library? So you can use any. You can check all these header files, and you can start using one by one to do basic operations. So the intention here is actually the intention is since this codes already work, because no need to debug no. So everything is working properly. So they work easy to use, save time to develop. Actually, all those things, portability, everything is a basic reason to use these kind of functions. Like, so how much time it took to create an exponential of a number, calculating log of 2. So a lot, because already somebody is written. Just I'm changing the function. I'm using it actually. So you can do all those things. It can be very easy. So any doubts here using the standard library?
So that tell me that exponential that you are using.
Exponential of a 2 number. No? So I'm exponential. You have to calculate now. How you will calculate exponential of something?
Don't know.
What is the exponential of a number? What is the exponential? See, logarithmic of 2, exponential of a, all mathematical thing. So if I see this, if I give number 2, then what is the value of e to the power of 2? And if I give number is 4, I'm trying to calculate what is the value of e to the power of 4. So this value I'm trying to calculate. So if I'm trying to calculate log 2 means like, so if I give 2, then what is the value of log of 2? Passing 2. So logarithmic table you should be using. For to check this actually, exponential table you should be using. So there is exponential chart also is there. Let us see that like exponential chart. So chart. I can use a chart. So this chart, where is that actually? So this is a chart. So power, where is exponential? This is power the thing. E to the power of thing. There is chart is that value will come automatically. Like you should have known that, like if you would have used the mathematics, then you should have known what is exponential. So this is the like, this is whatever this x value is there to the power of that. So 0.1, then this is the value. So something that like exponential power value chart is there. This is, so based on that, like it will give, so exponential power to the power of 4. So whatever it may be. So that using that, or else like you can use the, just like a log calculator, there is something exponential calculator also there. Exponent calculator. So exponential calculator. So instead of, so use this. So now e to the base. So if I'm trying to give, so I'm trying to give e as base. So what is the value? I'm trying to say 4. So calculate. So this is the value. So you can run giving the 4. I should have got the same value. So 54.0. So what is the value I'm getting here? 54.559. So what I got here, 56. That is rounded off actually. That's it. Fine. Because if you wanted exact value, then you should say that like I don't want that up to 2 number, but I got the same thing. 54.598148. 0.5981 so 48. So that is how it would have got. It's fine. Did you got that answer? So instead of you calculating the other things, so it is done. So I'm using the function to calculate that. Any questions? Any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay. So you can think about what all the other things are there. You can keep trying to use all these user defined functions. Not only the maths actually, like I have told you that like you can use any other, like, so you can see that like what all the library files are there. So you can look into string functions or like a standard library. So what all the functions are there here? So can I use what kind of predefined functions are there? So you can go here. So you can check and you can try to use. So what all the functions are there here? So these things you start using. So this is how you should be practicing. So you understand what all the already predefined functions are there, and you can look into, and you can start using it. So this is about standard library. So now we look into user defined libraries. What is the user defined library? Okay, let us try to define some user defined libraries. So now one thing is actually I wanted to do add two numbers. I wanted to add two numbers. So how should I define a function to add two numbers? So then first I should be if I have to say that what is the problem statement? Problem statement is add two numbers. Write a function to add two numbers. So add two numbers. So now thing is actually like now if I have to add two numbers, what is necessary? I should read two numbers, and I should give the sum as output. So now which kind of number you wanted to add? If you want to only add integer numbers, then argument should be take two integers and output would be also integer. So it's like I can say int is the output and the function name, and then it will take two arguments. One is int, another is also int. So now this is what you understood. Now what is the argument one, number two? You can say variable num1 and num2. So this is, and the function name is actually maybe add two numbers. So you should decide two numbers actually. Now I understood what is the function name. So now let us say that like, okay, I have defined something that like int add numbers, and it will take int a and int b, because this is the things like, so now well, how should I start actually? Let us just copy here. So I'd like to info that. Now, okay. First is, so okay, this skeleton I have written. So this is how I'm written. So add two numbers, like since my one function only this is necessary. Now I should have declared what is that name. So because it is taking two value and it will return integer. So I said actually int two numbers. add two numbers. So I can have any name. So then now I'm saying that like int a is one value, int b is another value. So int b. So now this is a declaration, and declaration stand with semicolon. Now I understood that. So now somewhere else I should be using that. So now the thing is like first I should be reading two numbers, correct? So and I should be calculating sum of that. Means like what are the variable necessary? So now one is number one, that is first number, number two, that is second number, and sum of two numbers, correct? So that is the third variable. So now I have declared the variables. Now I should be reading. So now how should I read actually? Scanf. So I instead of improving the speed, I'm just reading it. So scanf two numbers. So two numbers is actually numbers are of integer. So percentage is percentage. What is the name? Num1. So name of the function variable is num1. Name of the variable 2 is actually num2. So I'm trying to read two numbers. Then what is actually? Now I should be calling that function. So to add two numbers. So now and then that will give the sum. So sum is equal to this function, and I should be passing that two numbers. What are the two numbers? One number what I have read is in num1. Second number is actually what is I have read is actually num2. So now I'm read. Now I got the sum. So now I should be printing it actually. So print the sum. So I'm trying to print the sum. So now this is how I have written. But now this function declaration is done, but function is not defined. So I should be defining the function. So now here I should be defining the function. How should I define? So it will take same. So this will be same because this is how it will like. Now this will be same, and here it's a bracket. So now it starts. So what I'm trying to do is actually I'm trying to calculate. So now the directly I need somewhere else I have to store the result, correct? So I can say that like this I am trying to declare another variable that's called result. So where I will be calling, or else I can also call as a sum or like addition or anything. You can yeah, also that like let us say that like I'm calling a local variable called add. So what I'll be doing, add is equal to a plus b, because I have to add two numbers. So colon. Now I should be returning that. So what I'm trying to return, I'm trying to return the add. So then the colon. So this is what is the definition of the definition of a function. So now here I'm calling, I'm declaring, and this is where I've defined. This is a simple code to write a user defined function. Any doubts here? Any doubts? Understood? Okay, now I will be giving two numbers, 4 and 6. So I'm trying to run it. The summation of two numbers is 10. So declaration should be very important. Definition should be very important. And assume that like I don't want, I want to define before the function. So then I don't need this declaration. So I will be directly writing the definition. So I can still run, I can still get the same result. Fine. So if you are defining below, then I need a declaration, or else no need to have a declaration. Any questions? Very simple, correct? Guys, do you understood? Do you understood or not? Guys, any doubts? So let us try one more function. Function. So what is that actually? No argument passed but return value. Okay. So first what we tried actually, no argument passed, no return value. So okay, let us try some samples. Like so, no, I'm not passing any arguments, and I am not returning anything. So how should I do that? So that is also possible. I'm not trying to pass any value, and I'm not returning anything. So let us try this. That is also possible. Now here, instead of passing to number, I'm not passing anything, and I'm not doing this actually. I'm not even returning anything. So now, but I need to do read to number and print the sum. So now what I will be doing, this printing of the sum, I will be adding here. So now print the sum is equal to this is add, and I'm not returning anything. So if I'm not taking anything, I'm not returning anything, means like it is a void. It is a void. So I'm not taking anything, means like it doesn't have any thing. So now I have to read two numbers, correct? So I will be saying that like num1 and num2 is two variables locally. Now I am trying to scan this actually inside the function. I'm trying to scan this inside the function. Then I will be adding num1 and num2. So now this function doesn't take any value, doesn't return anything. So now same thing. So I am trying to rewrite the code. So what is actually the main function? So not necessary this variable, because I'm not using, not doing nothing I'm doing, correct? So I'm just calling this function. And since it doesn't take any value, so I'm not passing anything. And it doesn't return anything, I'm not assigning anything. So this is the main function. I'm just calling the function. And this is a return of the main function. So now in this function, since it doesn't take, so void is the thing, doesn't take, empty here, and it doesn't return, void is here. So in the function, I can do a lot more things, like something like, so I can read two numbers, I can add two numbers, and I can print that value. So fine. So this can be done. So what is this function? This function doesn't take any. So that is the one thing. So no argument passed, no return value. And no argument passed, but return value. So now how should I change? Okay, now it returns something. So now it returns something. We assume that like it returns int. It returns int. So now then what happens actually? Now here I should be defining one variable called sum. Since it returns something, so I need to assign that. So I will be saying sum is equal to int. Now I will be printing. So because it returns there, so I wanted to print here. So print the sum. So now since it has to return, so I will be having return statement, return add. So this is how I will be modifying. What is this function? This function doesn't take any argument, but it returns integer, some value. So I can execute. Any doubts here? So I'm trying to demonstrate what all the ways you can define the functions. No arguments, no return. No arguments, it returns. And arguments with returns already we have done. So arguments with returns, arguments but passed no returns. Like now arguments but no returns. So now this is no arguments returns, but I wanted to arguments and returns. Like let us say that like it takes some arguments. So now assume that like it takes two arguments like int a, int b, but it no returns. Means like it doesn't return anything. So this will be void. So now I don't need this actually. So now number, because I'm already getting those numbers. This scanf should be here. So because I'm trying to read here, I'm trying to read in the main function. So I should have a defined those num1 and num2. So and it doesn't return, so I cannot assign. So it doesn't return because it is void, so it doesn't return. So I wanted to print this result here only. So that is addition. So add, and it doesn't return, so I'm not returning anything. So it takes two values, that is a and b. So add a and add b. So whatever the value we are getting, you should be changing that. So this is a local variable called add, and I'm trying to print there. It is not returning, so there is no return here. So now since it doesn't return, so I'm not assigning anything here. So so now this is it takes two parameters. 1 minute. So any questions here? Any questions? It takes two parameters. I'm just passing two parameters. Any doubts? Because it takes two arguments, I should be supplying two arguments. Are you following this? It takes two parameters. I'm supplying two arguments. It doesn't return, so I'm not assigning here. So it doesn't have any return here. Fine. So same code, I'm trying to demonstrate different ways of writing the function. So without argument, without return, with argument, with return, without argument, with return. So all possible kind of functions you can write. It is not necessary that like it is always takes arguments, it always returns the value.
So why you have not mentioned the ampersand?
Where is ampersand? Where should I say ampersand?
Here add ampersand not come here in that.
Where you are saying add here, you are saying.
Yes, printf sum is equal to percentage d ampersand add will not come. So
This ampersand, I'm not reading. No, ampersand is there for to read. To print, we don't need ampersand. See, if I have to read a number, then I should have ampersand. If I'm not printing, I don't need the ampersand. That is the first class, no? So let me show that actually. Input and output. That is the first class we discussed that. How should to read two numbers and how should we print? So and ampersand is to like ampersand is necessary while reading. While printing, we don't need the ampersand. So scanf num percent ampersand num is means like I'm trying to read into the num variable. While printing, I don't need. This was discussed in the first class, correct? So this is a way of scanf and print. Like how should we read value from user and how should we print? So I'm reading from standard input. So to read that, I need ampersand in front of variable name. To print, I don't need. That is discussed in the first class. So any other questions? You got it now? Why I'm using?
yes, sir, yes.
In scanf we need, in printf we don't need. That's it. Okay. So now, what are the ways? Like, so what I'm trying to demonstrate, so there is multiple ways you can write a function. So I'm trying to demonstrate different approaches of writing and user-defined functions. Right? Where was that? Okay. First one, what we tried, no argument passed, no return value done. No argument passed, but return value is done. So argument passed, but no return also done. Then what is the other thing? Argument passed and return value. This is the first thing what we tried. So this is the first thing what we tried. So what else actually? What else you need to know? So this is about the functions. Okay. So next thing, the concept what we need to know. Okay, that done. So one more concept what we need to actually the C storage class. What is the storage class? There are 4 types of storage classes are there. So this is very important. One is automatic, another is external, another is static, another is register. So now, so before we jump into there, we already discussed about what is a local variable and we discussed about what is a global variable. So if you still not understood, So in this case, say for example, in the for loop, if you are able to see int I am trying to define. So this int I is restricted within this for loop. So that's a local variable. So in the earlier case, like here, so we defined this add. This add inside this function. This is a local variable for this function. So this add is visible only in this function. If I'm trying to access here, it will give an error. And this int num1 and num2 is are local to this main function. So it will only accessible in this one. So like that. So those are our local variables that we discussed. And another thing is actually global variable. So global variable is actually like we defined outside the function. So if you see here, actually this int is defined outside the main function. So outside this function also, outside this function also, this is visible. So let us run this actually global variable function to understand better. So now what I'm trying to say here is actually this variable int is accessible here. So now here in this function, I'm using n, but this n is not declared here, defined here. So now here also I'm using it, it is not defined. So for example, if I let me first we'll run this actually, that is better. So this is called global variable. Now assume that if I, instead of defining here, if I'm trying to define here local, and now I'm trying to use this n, so it will give an error saying that like I don't have any see, this is what, like I'm not understood what is this n. So now I need to define in this function also. So this is how we should be defining in this function also, then only it is visible. But since it is needs to be defined declared in the display and the main both function, so it is always better to declare it as a global because it is used by multiple functions. So then it is better to define as a global. But if it is only used here and it is not used in another function, then there is no point in declaring as a global. So something that like if I'm using only local to function, then always better to define in the function where you are trying to use. So for example, I showed you that like for loop. So this I, int I is equal to 0, I greater than, I'm just using in the for loop iteration only. I'm not using anywhere outside the for loop. So I will be declaring here instead of declaring here. So we'll say int I can declare here also is equal to 0. But thing is actually I'm not using anywhere. So this I is only used in this for loop. So that is not necessary to declare here. So you should declare within the for loop. So that is called local level. Any questions on the local variable and global variable before we move on? Any doubts? What is the local variable? What is the global variable? Okay. The next is actually there is register and there is something like a static and there is something called a external. So what are the other things what we discussed? There is a register, there is static and there is external. So when I say external, and there is something called automatic also that I will discuss that actually. So when I say external, so that external, so for example, this is one file, so main.c. So I have another file and I have another multiple files. Now this int is not defined in this file. It is defined in some other file. I'm using here in this function, in this file. So now no need to define this. What I will be saying that like it is external. So I'm saying that like it is external to this one. Means like it is external to this file. So means like it is defined in some other file. So but if that file is not linked, means like while compiling, then it will give an error. So means like something that like if I have to explain that, so let us say that like you have two files. So one is one file is main file. So something that like a main function. So there is a main.c file. So now in this one, you are and there is one more function called, I have some more called something that like my my arithmetic file, my arithmetic file, something that like .c. Now here I'm defining some variable. So something that like I'm defining as a global here. So I'm defining some global variable int a is equal to 5 and one more called a float b is equal to 4.5, something like. Now I wanted to use this one here. So now what I'll be doing, I'll be saying extern, I'll be say extern this A and extern B, whatever I say. So the intention here is actually extern B, means like this is declared somewhere else, some other file. So that intention is actually like I'm trying to give hint to the compiler saying that like it is defined declared somewhere else, and while linking, when it is trying to link it actually all those files, you should find out whether this is declared some file or not. If it is not declared, it will give error. But thing is, what I'm trying to say is actually this is declared somewhere else. So that is called external. So any question on the external? So usually like why we do this actually, because what happens like there is no point in declaring. So declaring in every file, because if I'm trying to use, like if you are working in a project and there are 4 people are there, and that or some person will define everything. I'm using those things, either the variable, either the function, if it is defined by something. So I am so to define to use his function, I should be saying either extern, or I should be including that header file and all those things. Or to use his variable, whatever he's declared in his another file, so I should be using extern. So much like everybody is using the same variable, because only one place I should be modifying it. So if you are using my own local, sometimes if I say a value, in my case it is 4, his case it is 5, then the result may be different. So if you are using in that kind of scenarios, then we should be using extern. So extern is saying, intention of saying extern is actually it is not defined in this file, it is defined in some other place. Is that clear? Any questions here? On the storage class, global, local, extern. So did you understood or not? Did you understood? Take an example here. See, this is the way. So this variable is defined in file C, and I'm using here in the another file. So how should I use that? Actually, I'm saying that like this variable is defined somewhere else. So this is, let me copy this. This is called extern. Any doubts on the extern? Guys, do you understood or not? Did you understood or not? This is one file, this is another file. So I am trying to use this variable in another file, but it is defined somewhere else. It should be global actually. So now I am using. So this int, this A is defined somewhere else. Is it clear? Okay. So we discussed about a recursive function. So let me take one more example and discuss the recursive function, and before moving to the other thing. So let us take one more function to calculate the factorial. So actually like the key thing in the recursive function is actually some advantages there, some disadvantages there. So disadvantage actually is difficult to digest or understand very easily. It is not that easy to understand compared to the normal functions. So, and it is why it will be used more oftenly is actually like for certain kind of functions, certain kind of programs, it will be more simple to write those programs, and it is very difficult to write if using the normal approach. So it will be a little bit like a very complex to write a normal approach. So recursive is a much more easier to write and very, very simple to write, like something like a tree traversal that we will be discussing when we are discussing in the data structure kind of things. And even in factorial also, it is much more easier to write and simple to write certain kind of programs. But usually tree traversal or like some kind of advanced functions only, that time only we will be using recursive. But most of the times we will be using normal functions only, because it is very, very typical to understand. So let us look into one example using factorial. So now, why we are using factorial recursive function for factorial is actually the nature of that problem is expects you should be using factorial. Let us understand like how should we find out a factorial of a number. So if I have to calculate a factorial of 5, then how should I calculate? I will be calculating 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. So now what I'm trying to do actually, 5, actually if it assume that like if it is n is 5, so then I will be saying n into n minus 1 into again n minus 2, means like again one more minus, means like n minus 2, so n minus 3, so up to like n. So means like if you see here actually pattern, I'm keep on reducing n and multiplying, keep on reducing one value and keep on multiplying. So this kind of programs can be good kind of programs to use a recursive function. Because why we can use a recursive function here actually, now I can say something that like if I have to say the same thing, so I will have said something how I will be defining, like so now for example if fact I'm trying to pass n. Now if I have to call again this n, how will be doing? First I will be doing n into, next time I will be calling fact with n minus 1. I have reduced it. So like that, like next automatically, like first time n is equal to 4. So now what happens actually, this 4 is be called into again fact with 3, f with 3. So next time what happens actually, next when function is called, then I will be having 3 into f with 2. Then again this function is called again, then what is the value? So this then 2 into f of 1. So like that, since like if f is keep on reducing from 3 to 2, 2 to 1, 2 to something. So such kind of factorial functions, this is much more easy to understand. Like so initially like fact will be 4, so then fact will be 3, then fact will be 2, fact will be 1, fact will be 0. So when fact becomes 0, I will be returning back, because in the recursive function I should have one case where I should be exiting actually, like not calling the function again. That case has to be there, or else like it will go infinite loop. So that case has to be there. At one point I should be exiting that. So from here I will be exiting. So when I fact is equal to 0, 0th factorial is equal to 1. So means like I will be returning 1. So initially there was 1 into, I have called fact 0. So then I have returned 1. So 1 into 1. So now here 2 into fact 1. So fact 1 is 1 into 1 is 1. So means like this value will be taken here. So 2 into 1. So now here 3 into fact 2. So fact is 2 is returning back. So what value is returning back? It is returning back 2. So 3 into 2. So now here 4 into fact 3. So fact 3 is returning value. What is the value? It is 6. So 4 into 6. Now this fact will be returned. It's like the recursively I will be returning. So if I will be keep on calling, so n is equal to 4, n is equal to 3, n is equal to 2. So keep on like so keep on like n reducing, calling. When n it becomes 0, I will start returning. Means like it doesn't go to that path. So see if you see actually when n becomes yeah, or like here a becomes 0, so it will start returning. So it doesn't go to the path where again calling back. So it will start returning. So at that moment it will start returning. At that moment it won't go to the next calling. So it will go to the else portion and it will start returning. So here I am saying 1 into whatever the value returned. So then it will multiply and the result will be passed on. Here 2 into whatever is written from the previous one. So that is then here 3 into whatever is value written from here. So here value 1 is written, here 1 into 1 is 1. So that value is written. Here 1 into 2, the 2 is written. So it's like the next, whatever the value is return. So finally, like when multiplied, then it will return. It will return means like it will go back to the main function. So this is how the recursive function executes. So one time it is keep on calling, and when the condition got hit, so it will keep on returning. and it will return back to the main function. So that is how this works. It means like this is called recursive call. This is a recursive call stack. So means like this function is called here, 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 here. Means like while calling here 5 into 4 factorial. Again, this 4 factorial means like it is called the factorial function. Then here actually 4 into 3 factorial means like here 4 multiplied and another function called. Then 3 into 2 again the factorial function is called. 2 into 1 factorial again factorial function. So here when it becomes 0, 1 into 0, 0 means like 1. So now it start returning. So from this point it will return. So this 1 will be like wherever is 1 factorial is there, that will be replaced by this 1. So then 2 into 1 become 2. So wherever 3 into 2 factorial, this return value will be replaced there. 3 into 2. So when 4 into factorial, so whatever the result will be put here. So 4 into that return value, then this will be returning back. So 5 into whatever is the return value. So that function returns, no, that value will be put here. So that will multiply, then it will return. So then that is how the one is the calling nested call and then returning. So this is recursive return calls. So calling back, and then it will come back. So the typical why it is much more difficult to understand is because of understanding this kind of pattern, multiple calling and then returning. So this is what is called a recursive call, and that is the reason it's a little bit difficult to understand. So I'm to understand this actually, like I have shown more diagrams. So how the calling time what happens, and how the returning time what happens. So when call is 1 and return, call 1 4 into return value of the function. So all this, like, so here it returns, this value will copy here, this value will be what was the multiplication will be copied here, multiplication of this will be copied here, but then finally it will be returning. So this is how the recursive function works. So any questions here in the recursive function? So the typical portion is like understanding how the calling works and how the returning function works. And you should have a condition. If this condition is, if else condition is not there, then it will be going infinite and it will go crash. So there is one plus here in this return cases, there is no return. So somewhere else. So how should have a case. So two important point. One is it repetitively calls. While calling repetitively, you should do some kind of a modification, just like in for loop. No, whenever you are trying to call again and again, there is some kind of increment or some kind of a decrement you are trying to do. So something, so here also you should be incrementing or you should be decrementing such a way that sometimes this if condition will get fail and start returning. If it is not there, it will be keep on looping. These are the two things you should remember. So that's it actually. So any questions here? Understanding the for loop? Sorry, understanding the recursive function? Shall I move on? The code is for factorial recursive function code is. So now this main code is, there is no change. So I have defined a function int fact int n. So this is a function declaration. In main function, I am reading the n up to what number I should be calculating factorial. So then I am calling that function fact from main function, that fact function passing this n, and return value will be assigned to result, and I'm trying to print the result. So now this is, there is no change in this main function calling the recursive function. There is no change here. So in the recursive function, there is a change. So what happens actually? I'm checking if a is equal to not equal to 0, then only I'll be calling, or if it is equal to 0, then I'll be returning 1. So this is a condition is essential to terminate the recursive call. So this is terminate the recursive call. So now if it is not equal to 0, then I will be doing a into factorial a minus 1, because this is also necessary, because either I should be incrementing, either I should be decrementing depending on this condition. If you are checking for a is not equal to n, so something that like what you pass down, something that like, so then you should be incrementing. So either, because this value what you are keep on passing, somewhere else it has to result the termination point. So that is what important, a into, and this is a recursive call. This function is called again from within the function. So this is a simple question to calculate the factorial of a number. So if you wanted to find out a factorial of a number, so you will be calculated a factorial of a number. Any doubts here? Understood? Not understood? So see, it is, if you are not able to understand now, so you repeatedly watch, you should practice it actually, then only it is. But in first one go, it is difficult to understand, because not only for you people, even for experienced people also, like explaining, writing a recursive function is very, very difficult. But in the normal life, we avoid writing recursive function. Don't hesitate actually when you, unless until it is necessary, like traversing of a tree or like a factorial number. Only if very specific few cases only we will write a recursive function. Most of the time it is very difficult to understand. That's why you won't be able to write. And why I'm asking you, because definitely there will be one question on the recursive to check actually whether you understood this function call or returning. Because definitely in all aptitude questions, wherever you go for even exam, PGCT exam, or like PhD exams, like where campus admission exams, or like interview, recursive function will be oftenly definitely will be asked. Either they will ask you to write, or they will ask you to understand and what is the output of the function. So that is the reason I'm trying to cover. But you have to practice a thing to understand the recursive function. It is important one. Definitely there will be one or two question asking you to write a recursive function, and you understand the what is the output of a recursive function. So the next one is actually the last concept in the function is calling the variable number of arguments. So because when we say, when we define a function, we need to define how many arguments we are passing and what is the type of the arguments in C. So for example, I was saying, no, so int function. So now if it is taking one argument, I should be passing one arguments. Like, so while declaring itself, I would have declared how many arguments it will take and what is the type of the argument it will take. So for example, it is taking int value, one value it will return, and one value it will take. So then function, it will take int a. So if it is taking two value, then I will be saying int a comma int b. So if it is taking three things, then I will be saying int a, int b, int c. So if it is taking four, I'll say int a, b, c. So if it is, so it's like I need to space. But like for example, sometimes I need to pass multiple arguments. So sometimes I will argument one argument, I will be passing two arguments, I will be passing three arguments. So how should I do that actually? So there is something called a variable argument concept is there. So to define that, while declaring, you should declare actually int function, int comma dash dash dash. So how should I declare the variable argument function? So something that like I'm trying to calculate the average of a number. So this function will return double value, return value, and it will take int value. So int number one, then in comma and a dot dot dot, three dots I am trying to give. When I say mention three dots, means like it will take multiple arguments. So it will take multiple arguments, and any number of arguments you can pass. So now this is the declaration. So while declaring the function, I should specify what is it returns, and I need to, instead of specifying the int a comma int b int c, I don't know how many arguments we are saying. So what I will be doing, int comma dot dot dot. So that is how is the definition of calling, means like declaring a variable function which takes variable number of arguments. So that is the thing. So now while calling this function, I can pass with the three arguments, one arguments, two arguments, three arguments, four arguments, five arguments, six arguments. I can pass any number of arguments. So while calling function name, and I can pass any number of arguments. So since it is taking int, so I'm passing, because it takes all integer. So integer, I'm passing it. So that is how my function declaration and calling is done. So now how should I do operation by taking multiple arguments? So in the function, I need to define something called VA underscore list. VA underscore list, that is a type. So just like int is one type, float is one type, something. VA underscore list is actually variable argument list. So that is where I'm trying to say that like this is a variable list of arguments. So is equal to V list, means like my own variable name. So why I'm interested in that is because, so I'm trying to call one predefined function. so called VA underscore start. VA underscore start means like I am trying to understand how many arguments are passed. So then I am passing this variable called V list, and then I am passing one more argument called num. So this num, I will come to know that like how many arguments are passed. So if it is passed 3 arguments, this num will return value 3. If I pass what is called 10 arguments, then num will get 10. And this VA list will have get all those values. VA list will get all those values, and this num will get how many numbers of arguments are there. And this function, this is a standard function, and to use the standard function I should be using stand arg.h, because I'm using some standard functions, then I should be using appropriate header file. So that is called stand arg.h. So stand arg.h will be used since I'm using this. Why I'm using this? Actually, I need to get all those arguments, and also I should have a count of those arguments. How many arguments are passed? Whether 3 arguments passed or 4 arguments passed, 6 arguments passed. So I should get all those arguments into VA list, and also I should get how many arguments passed into something num. So now I got the num. And that this one. So this num is actually what we have passed on this. So what is the function name, and that num what we are passing on this. Now what happens actually? Now I'm trying to iterate. So I'm trying to iterate. Why I'm trying to iterate? Because I should be getting one argument by one other argument. So I'm trying to iterate that. So now I'm trying to sum this. So this VA underscore R passing this list and passing the type. So which type of the value will return? This will return the one by one value. So first, if I pass 3 value, first iteration it will pass first value, second iteration it will pass second. So that is VA underscore R will give one by one value, and that I'm using to sum it actually. And now when everything is done, so I have used the values and I knows how many times I have to iterate. Then I wanted to close, I meant to clear all the memory. So I wanted to release all those variables, everything. So there is something like a VA underscore end. So this will release, means like clear off all the VA list, all those things. Means like I will be removing or nullifying the memory. So this is what is necessary. So to use the variable arguments, one thing is actually the way you should be declaring function is different, and you should be using VA list, and you should be using VA start and VA arg, VA end to clear it off. This is the procedure, and you should be looping that. So this is a looping to get one variables. These are the 3 things. So now, since I have already calculated the sum, then I am trying to return the sum. So since here I am trying to do average, so sum divided by number. So how many elements are there? So that will be trying to do. So this is how the function for variable argument function I have defined. So now how should I call? So first time I'm calling that average function with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values. Second time I will be passing a different number of values. So you can do it actually. Let us run this code. So let me try with different examples. So this is the end of the session. Let me run this one, and I will explain this one, and we complete the session, close the session. So now let me do here. So first time I'm trying to pass only up to 5. Second time I'm passing, assume that like I'm passing one more element 20. So I'm passing one more element 20. So this is the declaration of the definition of the function. So int num, this can be any variable name. So this is any variable type thing, and this is a dot, 3 dots are there, and where list is a variable thing. So until sum I am trying to, because I need to calculate that. So internal local value. So now in the for loop, this num is what I'm trying to pass is actually what is passed to the average thing. And but here what we will get actually number of arguments. So here it is just a notion I'm using it actually. So now when I'm calling it actually the average function with actual values I'm passing. So one time 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One time 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will reduce it actually. So one time I will pass only 3. One time I'm passing only 4. So this is how I'm trying to execute the function. 1 minute. So I'm calling average of these numbers. So 2 plus 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, 4 plus 5 is 9. 9 plus 3 is 12, plus 4 is 14. 14 divided by 4 is equal to 3.5. So 5, 10, 15. So 30. 30 divided by 3 is equal to 10. So this is how I'm trying to do. So anything, like if you wanted to send a float, so value float, so I should be specifying float here. Then I should be specifying here float, because I need to click one on float value. So I'll be specifying float here. So rest, and while passing, so no problem. So integer value can also be passed, or else like you can pass the float value also, no issues. 0.5. So now 0.6 or something like that. So I can do that. So this is how I will be changing. So if it is char, so you char. So anything, so variable type. So you should remember here, whatever is there, that should be here. So in where arg. So this va underscore arg will give, so one by one value, one by one value. So and that value I'm trying to add here, summation there. So any question? Any questions here? Any questions? Any question? Any question? Any doubts?
No, sir.
I think it only works with the integer. It doesn't work with the floating. So let me check it. So it is only working with the integer. So I will get back to on this floating thing. It is only working with the integer value. So it is not working with the floating value. I will get back to on like why it is not taking multiple float values. So it is only working with multiple integer values. It is not working with the multiple float values, but you can pass any number. So you can call any number of times, but there is no necessary in that. So that will ends actually the function thing. So sorry, because I wanted to finish off fast actually. This is not the regular class where I will be teaching each line by line. So that is the reason I'm giving you the document and I'm asking you to read, mainly because I don't spend, because this is I'm assuming that like everybody has already learned the C, and just I'm trying to refresh it so that like you get the your knowledge is get refreshed. But if you are learning the first time, then it will be little bit difficult for you. So I'm assuming that like everybody has learned the C in our college one time, and this is a refresh class. So that is the reason I'm going a little bit like a faster thing. So, and I wanted to complete because we have to do a lot more. This is a crash course actually, not a normal kind of a course. Armor course I will go a little bit like a individual, slowly I will go, but like here I will be going fast because I'm just interested to refresh your concepts, not like teach the new concept. So you want to know something, I'm refreshing it actually. So here and there if you're not understood, but if you are expecting me that like need to teach everything in the line by line, then I have to take a lot of sessions actually to complete each one. Like recursive itself will take one whole session, like 2 to 3 hours to understand you. So I wanted to cover a lot more in one session. So any questions here? So every sessions will be like this only, because I'm assuming that like you read the document, you have already understood the C, and then I will be covering it. So fast, because functions I have covered. In the next class, I will be covering array, string, and pointers. Like array string, I will be covering. Pointers will take array string, and maybe structure and union I will cover one go. Pointers will take one session. So array string and structures I will be covering in one go. After pointers only necessary. Okay, so what I will be doing, array string, and I will cover one session. Pointers in and structures one section. File handling, enum and processing and dynamic memory. It's like I wanted to complete it in 2 to 3 sessions only. In 2 to 3 sessions only I wanted to complete. And after that, like we'll do a lot more programs. But that program also don't expect me that like everything I will be explaining. You should go through that. You should have practice it, and then you would have come and to get a little bit like a doubts here and there. So that is how this crash course will be there. So this what we am trying to take is a crash course, which will be in the fast space, not in the normal space. So it will be to take a faster space, and I hope you are able to cope up. So that is the reason I'm sending the documents. Any questions here? So don't expect me to go slow here. So that is not my thing. So if I'm trying to go slow, then it will take again, like just like one semester you will be learning C, then again I should be spending 3 to 4 months to explain just a C code. So that won't work out here. So fine. So any doubts? And also one more thing you should note actually, we will be first we will be doing basic questions, then we'll be going more and more advanced questions. So to understand the advanced programs, you should have practiced the old code. So basic things. It's like if you're not practice the basic thing, then suddenly when I jump into the advanced things, so then you will face a lot of difficulties. So the intention, I'm doing it purposefully because you come with the preparation. So or else like you will just come and again listen, again go, again listen, again go. That doesn't make any sense. So you come with the preparation so that like you can cope up with very fast. So that is the intention here in the crash course. Fine. So any doubts? And this is how the corporate training will be there. So if you join a company, corporate training, they won't be explaining any line by line. So the intention, another intention is actually you should cope up with the corporate. Like when you join a company, this is how the course will be there. Like so, C they will be teaching in 3 hours or 4 hours. So don't expect that like they will be teaching C in like 40 hours, like 60 hours, like what you used to learn in college. So or less they will be teaching C in 1 hour only. Fast space. So it is not that fast pace like a corporate, like C 3 hours, 4 hours in C, but it is a little bit like a faster pace. So you should be ready to absorb this kind of space. So that is the another intention of doing this kind of crash course. Usually in corporate, nobody will, because if I go training for a corporate, 1 hour I will be charging around 10,000. So if they give me 60 hours, then it will be too much costly for them. So they will say that like you complete C in 3 hours only. So that is how the corporate works. And so you should learn those kind of observation. Like in corporate world, nobody teaches more than 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours. Whatever the complex topics will be there. Big like programming language, anything. So SQL, anything they will cover in 3 hours. And for freshers, maybe they may take maximum 1 day or 2 days. But most of the times it will be covered in short time. So this is another, you should start coping up this speed. So, and you should have that, build that. Another reason why I'm trying to take longer duration is actually you build that thing. So habit of listening or like sitting for a long duration. So that is also important. So now think about like me is sitting and teaching you. So if you are facing difficulty to listen it, so in corporate, not like that. You have to slog for a longer duration. So this stamina has to be built. So if you have to run 5-kilometer marathon, first you should learn for running for 100 meters, then 500 meters, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, 5 kilometer. So like that, your stamina to sit and listen long duration also you should be increasing. That is the reason I'm just enforcing. So making sure that like you cope up with the corporate work life. So the intention is this twofold. You start building your stamina to listen for a longer duration. So that is the one, and understanding in the fast pace. These are 2 reasons for this crash course. So I'm doing it purposefully, not going that slow because of these 2 reasons. So I hope you understood that. So any questions? Okay, so we'll end here. What we will do now, like I won't be taking another session today. Next Sunday I will be taking, but before Sunday I will be giving the materials. So next time you should read the material and come and watch all those videos and come. So it will help you. So I just want to, and still if you are not able to understand, then don't worry. We will be doing a lot more problems. Then at that time you will understand. But I don't want to spoon feed here. So I'm forcing you that like you learn the way the corporate people learn. So that is I'm trying to do. And if you are not understood here, I will be doing more recursive function there. At least that time you will understand. A few more I will do, but at least I'm seeing that like by doing more and more programs, you understand that. But you come with preparation, start watching the videos again and again, and I hope that like you learn that actually. You if you enforce you to learn from this space, you will definitely will learn. I know that like you people has a capability to understand this, but only thing is like you are taking it very lightly. That is the reason it is happening. But you should push yourself to understand this and sit with this long. So and watch those videos and practice it and come. So we'll see that. So I just wanted to see that like whether you people are able to understand this level. Thank you. Bye.